welcome everyone to a very special 10th episode of Retro Encounter, where we'll be doing the end of Final Fantasy Tactics. I'm Josh Curry. With me is Caitlin Argyros.
Hi.
Peter Triezenberg.
Hi.
And Marcos Gaspar.
Oh, and I guess we should say who we are on the boards. We haven't been doing that. So, I'm Link Zero on the boards. You might have noticed my awesome Chie icon because she is my spirit animal.
I
What?
I just more laughing that we got through everybody's names and we got to Marcos, and you're just like, nope, not introducing Marcos.
You noticed that too, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry, baby.
Oh, that's quite alright. That's happened a couple of times before.
You know what?
So
Sadly, the most impressive thing is I've been on all 10 of these episodes, and I think I've only introduced myself twice.
Oh.
If you want, we can start over.
No, I love this.
Okay.
Alright, Peter, who are you on the boards?
On the boards, I have Fury. My avatar is Fawful.
Marcos, who are you?
And yeah, you should all talk.
I am Wild Armor on the boards. My avatar is a very fancy painting-esque drawing of Tella.
And he communicates solely in GIFs.
Oh yeah, only gifts.
Yeah, it's
dominate.
It's really difficult talking to you sometimes.
Really?
'Cause I'll write up a paragraph and be like, you know what, Josh, that was super smart. You get a pat on your back, and you'll come back with like a thumbs up, and I'll be like, fuck.
Hey, he sent me when I beat the final boss of
There's that
Final
explicit tag.
When I beat the final boss of Final Fantasy Tactics, he sent me like a parade of dancing rainbow Kirby's. So
Yes.
See, and I'm fine with like the thumbs up's easy. Like I get that I did good, but it's when it's something that I don't know what that actually means. Like I tweeted about my anniversary the other day, and you sent me a picture of it looked like a purple hippo that was a female, and I don't even know what that means. I don't know.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Only Marcos knows.
And apparently he doesn't even remember, so that's the worst part.
I remember I have a folder of these gifts. I just choose one at random that what seems appropriate, and I just post it.
So, as I said earlier, I'm Josh Curry. I'm JD Curry on the boards. My icon's Draxus because I love Hearthstone, and the best thing in the world is throwing down a Draxus when somebody thinks they're going to beat you. So, there you go. But we're not here to talk about gifts or Draxus or anything else that we've unfortunately already talked about. We're here to cover the ending for Final Fantasy Tactics, so let's try to stick on that for at least a couple minutes. We're going to start the show the way we always start it. We're going to do the Peter Minute and see what you think since this is your first time through it.
I like that, the Peter Minute.
we should keep that. That should be a thing.
TM?
Even if Peter's not on a particular game.
Yeah, just call me and ask for the Peter Minute.
Or we'll just have a moment of silence every time.
A moment of mourning for my absence.
Or just have a silence and then copy his what he said in another episode into the space.
Yeah.
I'm only a few years away from the cloning project, so we'll get it sorted by then, hopefully.
Then we can have only 4 Peters on the show. And so it'll be Peter 4 minutes, and then we'll just end the show every time.
The Peter Minute is being overwhelmed here. Hang on. Final Fantasy Tactics. TG Sid is the win button. And
Yeah.
once you start using him, any semblance of difficulty is kind of thrown out the window.
Yes, sadly.
And Ramza can solve any problem by punching it in the face.
Yeah, if I learn anything with tactics, you should just punch whatever your problem is.
Or
In the face?
Or stab it.
Or in the back. Sometimes the back works better.
Back of the head's great face.
So what you're saying is the Falcon Punch beats all.
Exactly. So Peter, what was your final group? Why'd you pick them? How much did you actually grind out to get leveled up? Did you do a bunch of the side content?
I didn't grind a lot to level up so much as just to get the job, like the skills I wanted. So I made Ramza into my double punching monk and pretty much kept him that way for the rest of the game. He had the samurai skill that let him block physical attacks, so he was pretty difficult to hit, and gave him increased mobility so I could get him around faster. And TG Sid I pretty much kept the same for the entire game, because why would you change that? He's too good. I had Luso in my party for a little bit because I was originally intending to make him like a second Ramza monk because he has the same skill set.
That's exactly what he's for. Kind of dirty. Actually.
Yeah, and then I ran out of time, so I was like, yeah, you can just do your thing. I gave him Meliadul's sword and was just like, do your thing. I turned Balthier into a chemist and had him in my party for a bit. He replaced Mustadio after a while because he had a better gun. And
he has better skill sets.
Yeah, like he's like Mustadio, but good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Agrius, of course, because she's the lady, the woman.
Yes.
Yeah. Did everybody at least keep Agrius? I was kind of one of those I had to because I was terrified of Caitlyn's wrath.
I shall smite any fools who don't use Argyros.
I already say enough on this podcast to piss her off, so that was like, I felt like it would be like the final thing that would be my doom.
Oh gosh, I didn't even use her. She's still at level 18.
Okay, consider yourself smited, Marcos.
Oh.
I'm going to smite you.
Can you at least wait for us to finish the podcast first?
Yeah, we sort of need to keep him.
To.
We sort of need to keep him around.
Please.
We have to give Marcos 2 minutes, and then you can do it at least.
Okay, Marcos, 2 minutes to say everything you want to say about the rest of the game.
And then die.
And then bury Steady Sword.
She's gonna pop out of your closet like a Five Nights at Freddy's monster and just jump scare you.
Actually gonna encase me in ice and I just freeze there forever.
Yeah, you have to be careful how you kill him, because if I've learned anything about tactics, nobody actually is ever dead. You'll see them at least one more time.
Yes. We'll get into that in a little bit.
But Marcos, what was your group and?
Not very interesting. The same character I've been using since the beginning of the game. The same team, same setup. Giving Carlson that double equip for swords. Just he's very monstrous. He's a very monstrous person. That is all.
That's it.
That's it?
That's the entirety.
I mean, like, I really haven't done anything different. When it came to like difficult battles, I just baited the characters forward, sent Ramza to do a sword break or another ninja to sword break their weapons, so they can't do a shell bust on me or whatever move that is and destroy my armor and hit me for max damage.
What about
Okay.
you? Yeah. So, Caitlyn, before you smite him, what was your group?
At the very end, I had Ramza on ninja with heavy armor equipped, so he'd be a bit more, survivable from everything. a little bit less, prone to dying quickly. Of course, Agrius, and I had her with Holy Knight and Samurai skills, and basically the setup I mentioned last time where she has all those awesome buffs and is unkillable. I had another ninja with samurai skills secondary, so got 2 samurai out there who can buff the party and heal and do area attacks. I did use Balthier a lot just because it was useful to have someone with range skills, and he had one of the elemental guns, which was very powerful, if a bit random. And then I usually had my Dragoon out there as well with an item set secondary just to have a little bit of a safety net with healing and whatnot. And worked out pretty well. My ninjas had an attack boost, so they would do an obscene amount of damage with each attack, and then of course 2 of them because they were dual wielding. So it was fun watching the final boss melt before my party.
What level did you say you were at?
I was right around 50 or 51, which is right around where the enemies are at that point in the game. So I didn't really have a huge level advantage on people, but because of my skills, I guess, I still steamrolled the final levels.
So I steamrolled the final levels as well, but for a very, very different reason. I had Orlando. Is that how we're gonna call him?
Orlando.
Okay, Orlando.
Just call him Sid. He's Sid.
All right. So I had Sid at level 85.
That'll do it.
And then I had Argyros and Ramza in the 80s, both as Dark Knights. So that's really all you need to know about my party. I messed around. I had a time mage just for why not. And then I had Landu as a Divine Knight. But that was kind of my final crew going into it. But Argyros had both Dark Knight and Holy as her abilities. And I actually followed everything that, for the most part, Kayla, you set up. At least with like the movement and whatnot. And so adding in that she was also a Dark Knight, she was scary, powerful.
Yes.
So I actually tried this. I played myself and I won. And I reloaded my save and I put everybody on auto attack and I still won.
Wow.
So my group was scary strong. I know we had talked in the last podcast about me progressively liking it less the second time through because I was over leveled. I got over that really quickly, as you can see, and that didn't bother me. So I'm back on to really loving the game. I think mainly that's because of the story that takes place in Chapter 4.
Yeah, it gets really interesting.
And we'll cover this later, but the ending, every time I think about this ending, it's one of the coolest things, I think.
Yes, I agree.
Was that a no?
I thought we were getting.
Peter.
I thought we were getting to that later.
Am I going to have to smite someone else here?
If you keep smiting people, we're going to be short a podcast very quickly.
If you guys would have told me at the beginning of this podcast that I'd be the only one that wasn't going to be smited by Caitlin, I would have been shocked.
Hey, don't push her back.
The podcast isn't done yet. You might still be smited. You don't know.
I have the power to end it right here.
Well, we might as well talk about the ending since I kind of implied.
Yeah, we have to now that you said that you didn't like it. You basically said that Final Fantasy Tactics is the worst game ever.
That is exactly what I said. It's 0 out of 10. Would not play. I think it's a good ending. I think the ending happens really quickly.
It does, doesn't it?
That was my kind of reaction. It wasn't because this could be because I read ahead. I knew kind of the basics of where it was going. The scenes that happen are really interesting and it's really good. But I was also kind of like I was kind of hoping for a bit more resolution to you killed the giant skeleton angel and now everything is hunky dory.
Well, in all fairness, you killed everybody else getting there.
True, and I guess
you killed everybody twice getting there.
I think you killed all the clergymen as well.
That's true. I'm pretty sure the church is dead.
Yeah.
Also, I actually have a question. On your version of the game, what does Delita say at the end? Like, how's that phrased? Because for me, it says like Ramza, what did you get? And that's where it ends off.
He says it's very similar. He says did you get your end in this? I got mine.
Well, this is what I got. I got a knife in the gut, and my queen wife, is probably bleeding out on the floor on her birthday because I'm a horrible person.
Birthday.
Happy birthday, Stab.
There's worse birthdays than that.
We can just say that Delita he gets what he deserves in the end with that epilogue scene. You know, someone who's basically been manipulating everyone around him for the entire game, despite the fact that he hated that when we first met him. I think it's very poetic that he ends up getting, a knife in the gut and we see his true colors and he just turns it right back on Amelia. It's just like, yeah.
So I'm just going to do a small, just because I have to be antagonistic. Don't you in some ways feel bad for Delita?
I feel like he's a child of his environment.
I don't think that's an antagonistic question, because I think he's a complex character.
I mean, if anything, it kind of reminds me of like a tragedy of some sort.
Oh,
where
Yeah, but it's kind of hard to feel sorry for him when he creates everything that he gets.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, if there's anyone I feel sorry for, it's Ivalice in that epilogue, because she really gets the short end of the stick.
She really
or the
does.
short end of a knife.
Yeah.
The pointy end of a sword.
Oh, that's so bad. Why am I laughing at that?
Because we're all terrible people. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, you can say he did all of this, all these terrible things. He manipulated and whatnot. He's bred from a society that he was an outcast. He was actually very fortunate to be given what he was given, but he was still at that point felt like he was being manipulated by his closest people. He had the most important person in his life ripped away from him in something that never should have occurred. And I feel like at the end of the day, he's actually the main character of the whole story.
I read somewhere.
I disagree.
Somewhere someone wrote that Ramza and Delita kind of fulfill the law-chaos dichotomy that you find in Metsuno's games, where it almost seems like they're both protagonists, or at least like they're mirrors of each other.
Absolutely, they're mirrors or foils.
Like,
yes.
I know in the Tactics Ogre games, you have like an alignment, and I don't know if this was at one point or another in the game's development. I don't know if this is true or not, but they might have planned to have like that more choice-driven factor, but instead to have a straight narrative, they split the protagonist into Ramza and Delita. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but even just from a storytelling standpoint, I can kind of see I can kind of see that perspective.
I mean, he's definitely a main character. I don't think him being the main character works with the whole point of the game is you're living the Durai papers that are trying to show that Ramza was the true hero of the War of Alliance, not Delita. So I mean, in the sense that the people had believed that Delita was the hero, I can say it that way, but I thought the whole point of the game was to say, no, this person that you've never heard of, that you might actually have hated as a heretic, he was actually the hero, not Delita.
It's one of those things full on, it's history is written by the victors.
Yeah.
Yes.
And even in the end, even with these papers, once again, after this came out, it was still written by the victors because they burned the writer at the stake.
Oh God, yeah. What a kick in the gut to have Oren there and to hear that he wrote this to try and spread the truth, and then oh no, he got burned at the stake because yeah.
So I actually have a small question about that for Peter. I'm not sure how much you did read ahead. How much did you think that I can never pronounce the guy's name? The narrator.
Arazlam or
yeah.
Yeah.
How much did you think that he was actually going to be a party member at some point for you? Because I remember being convinced that he was going to pop, and definitely when you just get everybody seems to join in the 4th chapter, I was waiting for him to be one of the people.
I don't know. I don't think I ever thought about that actually. Not because I read ahead or not. I just didn't think about it because I know he's the tutorial guy. He's the guy in the menu who like talks to explain stuff to you.
Huh.
So he's kind of already in the game already. But
yeah, it's just one of those things that exactly what Caitlin's saying though. This is the unwritten history, and the only way you could be part of that unwritten history is either to be told by somebody, like he's in such senses, essentially is, or to actually be there and experience it with them. And so I always went the route that I assumed that he had been there as well. Then obviously you find out that he wasn't, but
that could have been kind of interesting if there was a bit more like narrator involvement with the story.
I like Kim burning at the stake. I know that sounds terrible. But
Gosh.
Oren is your bro though. He's your bro.
But he went to the stake for you. Friends to the end.
Oh God.
I don't. I feel like it's the ultimate capstone of like this is a terrible world. And there's just terrible
Yeah.
things with terrible people, and the people that deserve to be celebrated, that have done their due diligence to try to make the world a better place. At every regard, have been knocked down and mistreated, and I feel like that is like the ultimate. Like, yep, this happened. Yeah.
I can see that. I still think it's kind of a gut punch when it's just like, oh yeah, BT Dubs, he dead.
But you get the happy ending that Ramza isn't dead. Yay!
And okay, so
He rides off into the distance.
I never wanted to believe this. Some people think apparently it's canon, and I don't agree with it. What do you guys think? Is it just Ramza and Alma that survive, or are we supposed to believe that because they are there at their own funeral that the rest of the party also survived?
Are you just worried that Argyros was able to live a long, fruitful life with her wonderful boyfriend from her birthday?
Josh, I think you just pushed the smite button.
Yes.
I kind of figured that's what you're worried about, and I can understand. You want her to live a long, fruitful life.
Guys, retro encounter is
Betty
we're all gonna be
children.
dead after this show.
Is that what you're trying to tell me, Caitlin?
No, that's not what I'm trying to tell you. I like all of my party members. Especially Argyros, but I like all of them, and I don't want them to be dead. And
Luso can die.
I mean, all my chocobos can die, and I don't feel bad about that.
Cloud can die. Yeah.
Cloud can't die there. He has to go save a different world.
Well, then he can teleport back to.
He has a long and storied career in Hollywood ahead of him.
Where in the game? Where in 7 are we supposed to even? I feel like he's pulled into Tactics World right after you get to. Where is it? Up in the ice part of the world where he starts going, or it's after he's fallen into the live stream or whatnot, and he's going crazy.
I've never played the game, so I don't know.
So are you saying this game is happening in Cloud's subconscious?
It was all a dream.
It's Cloud's fever dream.
That is not what I'm saying, but.
You're on a roll, Caitlin. I like it.
If that were the case, I think Cloud should just keep dreaming and not wake up. So there. Because, I don't know, I find the world of Tactics to be infinitely more interesting than the world of Final Fantasy VII. There, I said it.
I'd agree.
Come at me, Final Fantasy VII fanboys. I will fight you.
I haven't even played it, and it's a better game. I feel like I could say that, right?
No,
Yeah, you can justify that.
I like Cyberpunk.
So, going back to what your question originally was, Caitlin. I kind of assume that if Alma's able to survive, everybody else can, because, come on.
Well, you gotta understand, she also knows that magic or protect spell that casts perfect protect on her.
Yeah.
Aegis.
And she had plot armor up until this point, so
yes.
How do we know that?
At the very least, Argyros survived for me because she was a Dark Knight. So at least in my world, Caitlin, she is alive.
Yay!
And she's with Ramza, so if it's Ramza, Alma, and Argyros, kind of gotta assume that Ramza and Argyros end up together.
Yay!
Yeah, we're not getting all Lannister up in here.
What?
Game of Thrones.
No, I know, but we're talking about people who are not related, not people who are.
Oh, I thought Alma and Ramza, but
Well, yeah, she's there, but they're not in bed together. Shut up.
He's saying they're not going Lannister.
Good.
Clearly, there has been a massive miscommunication in this, and I'm probably going to get smited twice now.
So I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and guess that you think that Argyros and Ramza should end up together. Is that your fanfiction ending for it?
Yes, they're my OTP for the game.
Aww.
So, hence some of my dislike of the birthday sequence, which I appreciate from the fact that it actually gives Argyros and Mustadio some lines in the game, which in the vanilla version, they don't say anything after you get... Well, Argyros will have one thing to say in the execution grounds if you bring her, but after that, none of them talk in the main story ever again. So that's nice. I never really got the whole Argyros Mustadio ship. I mean, yay for people who like that. I never felt the connection between them. It always felt awkward and forced to say that they would.
It's completely superfluous too.
Well, that's all. Yeah. Outside of a handful of characters, for the most part, they don't really delve into any characterization for everybody else. You have your small intro sequences of like, hey, I have this mission to figure out who you are, and for the most part, everybody's put to the back burner outside of that.
Yeah, and I wish that they hadn't done that, because they introduce a lot of interesting characters, and apparently they're only useful for the story while they're guests, and then once they join your party, we have nothing more to do with them. They're just there to help you beat bad guys and whatnot. I mean, by the end of the game, the cast is a fairly small. It's you are Ramza versus bad church guys, and this wonderfully big cast of interesting characters that you've met and have gathered to your side. They're just relegated to backup, and I wish they hadn't gone that route.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing though, and I had to remind myself a couple times about this, is both good and bad. This game's almost 20 years old. And so it's one of those things, there's a few times like that I would notice certain things about the game, and it's like it felt much newer than it actually was. And I hate using this cop-out, but I feel like almost the age of the game is the reason that they weren't able to do some of those things. I mean, granted it's the PSP version, but you look at the slowdown and whatnot, they were stretching that game pretty thin.
Well, considering all they added into War of the Lions version too, I'm not saying that Cloud and Luso and Balthier should have had more, so to say. What I am saying is that why they wasted 2 extra battle sequences in the game on Beowulf and Reyes, basically doing a very similar plotline to the vanilla version when you first get them. I don't understand that. I really didn't want to have more Beowulf and Reyes shoved down my throat, but okay.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. In a perfect world, I think everybody that joins your party, you at least have one special mission one optional mission to get a special weapon for them, possibly like a special armor, or like 2 missions to get like their special armor or something too. And with that, you'd have that extra story. But then at the same time, I say that, and I almost like don't like that, because I enjoy that you get to build them in any way you want, and that's kind of forcing them down a single direction.
In a way, you kind of have that split between if it's super character focused, and then the game itself ends up being puts the characters into specific roles, because you have such an open system. That's part of why the characters are a little bit more pushed to the background once they actually join you.
Yeah, but that doesn't really hold true for Ramza. Ramza can be anything you want him to be throughout the course of the game, and it doesn't preclude him being present in story sequences.
It's true, but like we mentioned with how it's a retelling of the Durai papers and all that, it is Ramza's story. It is very focused on him. And I agree that I think it's a problem that the minor characters, the other characters, are kind of pushed to the background and they don't get a lot of development outside their introductions. I think that's something that if they ever make a proper sequel to this game, then that would be definitely something they should address. But,
yes, I agree.
But at the same time, I can kind of see why, even if I don't like it.
Damn it, Peter, you're just so reasonable.
That's why he gets the Peter Minute.
Wait, are we still in the Peter Minute?
No, we have a Peter intro minute, and then occasionally we have Peter resolution minutes. And then we have the Peter wrap up.
I was gonna say, otherwise the Peter Minute would have been going on for 30 minutes by now.
Well, it took us 10 minutes to
minute ever.
It took us 10 minutes to get into the Peter Minute, so. So yeah, I almost lean towards I like the freedom, and I know that it doesn't have to be character driven or, but in this game at least, I lean towards preferring the freedom.
Oh no, I definitely like the freedom of being able to build people how. I mean, come on, I talked about my ultimate Argyros build. If she were restricted to being a Holy Knight, it wouldn't be nearly as fun, and she wouldn't be nearly as deadly as she is. But
that's right, Dark Knight Argyros is much better.
So she's Batgirl?
Oh no.
I'm sorry, that was terrible. Someone besides Josh needs to make a terrible joke.
So how on Skype did we just drop one person? We had Peter's minutes, so we kind of got enough of him, right?
Hey, I'm like back up for don't even try that with me.
So yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth. But so we got kind of Peter's opinion on the ending. What it was, I know we didn't hear you, Marcus. What did you think?
What again?
Marcos, what did you think?
It's
of the
time for the
ending
Marcos minutes
of the game.
The game in whole. No, but I would have preferred that they cut a lot of the missions and develop characters. I'm more about the characters than you like build them yourself. Like I understand that it's a Ramses story, but I mean there's a couple of missions they could have cut out. Like there's this one where like there's just a bunch of like thieves that like meet you like at some passage, and they say like a Ramses group's like we need to get by, and they just say no, and the battle starts. Like that wasn't necessary. That could have been like a character development like place right there. I mean that's how I felt. I like developing characters.
Yeah, no, I almost always lead towards I'm pro character.
One thing they could have done, because one in-game day is supposed to pass every time you move on the world map, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like one thing I think they could have done is like, I don't know, campfire scenes or something like that. Kind of like what we're going to be getting with FF15.
Or like
yeah,
Dragon
that would have
Age.
been interesting.
Like just to see the party dynamic when they're not like being all super serious and talking about politics and betrayals and fighting.
Yeah.
I think that would have been that I don't know. The short version of that is that I'm just really excited for FF15, but
again, not talking about tactics.
We never talk about the game we're supposed to. That's how this
That's
podcast
like the
works.
rule.
But yeah, no, I understand what you're talking about, Peter. Like, I think that would have been great, them just eating some marshmallows together.
bringing it all back together.
Oh, here we go.
There's the pre-show. Oh, wonderful, yeah.
Is it marshmallow or marshmallow?
It's marshmallow, but it's pronounced like craziness. Just censor myself again. We're gonna talk about something else. Just screw those marshmallows.
I want Balthier and Argyros like eating marshmallows by the campfire.
Exactly.
And Mustadio just looks on with seething jealousy. And Balthier's all like, leading man, sorry.
See, I'd prefer you actually being able to move around and you go past a tent that is closed and you look at when you like highlight what it is, you see that it's Argyros and Mustadio's tent.
Okay, there you go. You were wondering when I would want to smite you.
I didn't need that image in my head, Josh.
What? I didn't say there's anything bad about it. I'm just saying that there's a tent. I mean, it's a big crew. They have to share tents, otherwise they run out of space.
If Argyros shares a tent with anybody, it's those two squires you have to keep alive if you want to see the birthday party scene, who I just turned into dragoons.
So you're putting them in there with Mustadio? Wow, he's not like a bandit.
No.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, he has to do something when he's busy not like being a good unit.
When he's not cleaning his gun?
Yeah, exactly.
There was no sexual joke there.
There was.
Moving on.
Yeah. So yeah. I kind of want to go back to actually talking about Delita with Ivalice, if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead.
So is it to be assumed that both of them die?
I think that's the canon. Yeah, they're both dead.
Okay.
I assume that Ivalice dies. I don't know about Delita, because my understanding was that he was supposed to have had a fairly successful reign.
Well,
And I almost feel like he had. She obviously didn't, but I almost feel like he had to have. To also just to think of the keeping Ramza as a heretic. I feel like he'd almost have to be successful and have a good reign to fully cement that. Because if he had died, they don't give a date on it. It's pretty close afterwards, though, right?
I think so.
So
It's like on her birthday, and it might be her first birthday after the end of the game.
Okay.
So.
It's just one of those things that like I feel like it's in everybody's dead at the end of the game. So if he can't stick around as king, I feel like they'd almost go into another civil war.
yeah, right. He's kind of holding it together almost.
Yeah, he was supposed to be the hero that brought peace to the land, so...
And back to him, at least to the outside public, being the main character.
Okay. Well, it says on the wiki that he may have survived the dagger wound, so.
I mean, we don't know. You can speculate either way. The only thing we know for sure is that Ivalice definitely falls over, and, I mean, it's very unlikely that she survives.
Now that I think about it, it's almost more poetic if he does live, because then he kind of gained everything and then lost everything that really mattered.
But doesn't
Yes.
so another thing, does Delita actually care about Ivalice? Because if he doesn't, then he didn't really lose anything yet.
I think so. I think he does legitimately care about people, but the way he cared about those really close to him. And I think that his actions ended up, he inadvertently pushed pretty much everyone away, including Ivalice.
Like, treat Ivalice like, terribly when he first meets her. Really, really bad. I went through, to get ready for this, I actually watched a YouTube video of all of the War of the Lions scenes again.
So
And you look at some of that, and then I also just kind of like reread through some stuff and looked at some other kind of cutscenes, like pseudo cutscenes, and I dumbfounded with how terrible he treats her actually in 90% of those scenes. So I don't know. I feel like she's just a means to an end.
Oh, she's totally a means. I mean, that's Delita's... That's the tragedy of Delita, is that what sets him on this path is that the realization that he's being used by... Well, Ramza doesn't really know that he's doing it, but, you know, he's being used by the Beowulfs, that he and people of his station are just existing to be used by the nobles, and yet he goes on to basically use everyone in sight himself. And Ivalice is just the most... Ivalice and Ramza are the most visible tools of his. Ramza because we're playing as him, and Ivalice because we see a lot of her over the course of the game. I mean, she basically, once she's in Delita's hands, she exists to be this figurehead that he uses to get himself into power. I mean, I love Delita as an anti-hero, as a bad guy of sorts, because he's one of the most manipulative people, if not the most manipulative person in the game. Yeah. But I find it's very hard for me to be sympathetic for him, because by and large, everything he does throughout the course of the game is to either A, get revenge against the nobility for how he and Teacher were treated, or B, to get the power that he says in the first chapter that he could never achieve through normal means. And all of this manipulation is just, he claims he wants to build a kingdom for, worthy of Ivalice. He claims he wants to, bring peace. And I don't doubt that he does, on a certain level, want that, but he also wants power for himself. The power that he was denied, as we saw at the very beginning of the game. And so it's hard for me to be 100% sympathetic for him, because You get what's coming to you when all you care about is your own power.
Yeah. He seriously was following his own ambitions. Even that woman that was following him, was it Balfoma or something of that nature? She even says you're I hate people like you that uses people.
Yeah.
So he knows he's doing it. He knows he's doing what was done to him to follow his own ambitions. I agree with you. I don't feel totally sorry for this guy because
he's a hypocrite.
It's just, it kind of reminded me of Animal Farm. If you read that book, have you read that book?
I read it, yeah.
Okay, so more or less, just animals being by themselves, or the pigs starts off normal animals, but by the end they were just they were no different from the humans, or Delita's no different than the nobles themselves.
And it's all communism.
So, am I the only one in the end that really likes Delita?
I like him.
I like.
Yeah, I like him. He's an interesting, complex character, but I don't like him as a person.
Yeah, it's kind of like in was it Shakespeare? I don't know how to pronounce it. Othello.
Othello,
Iago. Yeah, Iago, scumbag.
Iago.
But he was such a cool character. He was running the show.
He was played by
But
Ian.
just a
He was
scumbag.
played by Ian McKellen at one point. It was awesome.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, again, it's just terrible things about me come out during this show. I feel like if I was in this game, I would be Delita.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, are you saying you would make the same choices as him, or you would rather follow his story? I mean, I played games where I followed the complete destruction path, though.
I feel like, so, as terrible person as I come across sometimes, in games I actually usually almost always play super, super good. But if I'm more saying, if I was legitimately in the game, I was an individual, I was surrounded by some of these situations and whatnot, I feel like this is more the path I'd go instead of Ramza. You can say what you want about him, and you can say what you want about Ramza. Ramza saves the day at the end, but in a lot of ways, I feel like Delita was the only one that was pushing towards a resolution, and a plausible resolution. He was out for himself at all times, but let's be honest, who actually isn't? Yes, you include people in that. I think that's his ultimate failing, is he didn't include more people. But he performed admirably, and he had a masterful kind of coup that he led. And you look at it, he was a lowborn that somehow actually became king. That's massively respectable. That's I don't know, that's impressive. And I think he was one of the few people that understood what needed to be done and actually was willing to carry it out.
Well, my question is, for those additional missions in War of Alliance, do they develop Delita's characters to show that?
A bit.
Not terribly.
Not terribly.
Okay.
They give him a couple more little bits with Ivalice, but again, given how untrustworthy Delita is, it's kind of hard to tell how much of that is genuine. Even if I do hope that he kind of has some genuine feelings for her, or at least believes he does.
And I want to make it clear, I say all that about him positives. I do not support how he treated Ivalice. I would have handled the Ramza situation very differently. I still to this day don't fully understand his anger and rage that he has from what was that, chapter 1 or early chapter 2?
Chapter 1.
That I don't think that will ever actually fully make sense to me. But yeah, I don't support really how he treats Ivalice, because in a lot of ways you look at Ivalice, she is the female version of him. She's had everybody manipulate her. She's had losses in her life. She feels like a puppet, and she's trying to find a way out. There's actually a lot of similarities to them, and I feel like he could have found somebody that really he could have really bonded with, because they had so much in common. And I feel like instead of doing that, he fully manipulated, and that's where that he comes across as just an absolute jerk.
Yeah.
And that's where at the end it's like, you know what, you deserve to be stabbed. Like, you should have treated that situation a lot better. I don't know. Those are kind of my thoughts about him as a character. I think he's the most well-rounded character in the whole game. Like, you actually get to see his motivations in a lot of ways. You get to see who he is.
I think that's definitely fair, because Ramza may be the focus of the story, but he does develop as a character, but unlike Delita, he does kind of stay on the same track, which is his virtue.
Yeah. And that's where for me it always comes across as they're both the two main characters, but Delita always pushes a little bit farther for me because I feel like he's more fleshed out through the course of the story. But
I can respect that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's kind of my ending thoughts for all of it, I guess. Caitlin, would you like to complain about the birthday more?
No, I think I've said everything I have to say about that, so.
Okay.
I could talk about the extra battle where Argyros is a guest, and the stupid reason why she's required for that fight, because it's stupid.
Go ahead.
Which fight is this? Because I don't remember that.
You read a rumor, I think it's in Garland, about a bunch of deserters, and then you go to the Brigand's Den, and there's a new fight there, and Argyros is a guest character, so she's not only required, but you can't control her for the fight.
Ooh. Lame.
And the only reason why she is there is because the leader of the bad guys basically wants to have his way with her. And I mean, she stands up for herself and tells him off, but I don't know. I dislike these extra bonus missions where they treat the women like a piece of meat. So
I absolutely agree, and we touched on this with the second episode. That they treat women in this game horribly. But it's actually hard for her because she definitely, if you used her as a main character for your party, she's so powerful, and in most cases, until you get said, she's a baller. She's probably in most cases your strongest or your second strongest person in your party, and so then for her more so than anybody else to be put in kind of this more unseedy look situation, it's brought out even more in contrast.
And I mean, she fights back. She doesn't take any of this guy's, what he's shoveling out, and you can totally wipe the floor with the group. So it's not like she's being forced into a horrible situation, a horrible graphic situation without being able to defend herself. It's just the fact that this was an extra mission. It serves very little purpose in the game. I mean, even compared to some of the other extra side missions that you can do, and that's the reason why she has to be there, is to be desired sexually by an enemy character. It's just kind of like, come on.
It seems weird that both of her additions in War of the Lions kind of paint her in a less than flattering light, or at least like
they wanted you to make sure that you knew that she was a female.
Yeah, and they're both just really lame. There's really that's all I have to say about it. Really, that's just really lame, and it's odd that that's the only additions they gave her in War of the Lions.
There's also the thing with Ovelia and Delita, which is probably the best additional content for her.
Okay, that is good, yes.
Yeah.
Because that actually, that's not only good additional content for her, it fills in a major plot hole about her not looking for Ovelia after Delita takes her away, and it also sets up the epilogue. Anyone who played the game before playing War of the Lions would have looked at that scene and said, oh boy, that's the dagger, isn't it? And then, yeah. So that one I love. It's the other two additions for her that I kind of But,
I agree.
That's kind of the same with a lot of the editions. I know I said before that if you play the original, this is still worth playing more than Lineage because of the additional content. And I still think it is, but at the same time, some of the additional content feels kind of, I don't know, they could have done a better job.
And so I want to pop in a really quick listener comment with this. We're talking about the original versus the PSP version. I actually have to fully agree with this. Marshmallow on the board said that he or she didn't really care for the PSP version. I started up a new game on the PSP version, but the slowdown got old like 3 battles in, and I switched to the original flavor PS1 version, which I definitely prefer. Did admit that it sucks that I won't get to make a Ramza Dark Knight though, which I have to agree with that. But talking about differences between the games, I agree that the content is fantastic, or I at least like the cutscenes. I like that there is more. I agree some of them are kind of but the slowdown by the end of my playthrough, I want to gouge my eyes out. It got really, really annoying. So I agree with you, Caitlin. I think PSP version is definitely the way to go, but there's definitely some negatives attached to that as well.
Yeah, it all depends on, personal preference, I think. Some people just really don't like it. Other people, trudge through it. I mean, you can always get around it on the iOS and Android versions if you want to.
Which you don't, but...
But you don't, because touch controls in this game are shit.
Has anybody actually tried it on iOS device or Android?
I have it on my iPad.
Yeah, I refuse on principle.
Are you sorry you bought it?
No, I'm not sorry, because...
So since it was a Square game, was it like $20 or $40?
It was 15 or something like that. So it was more expensive than your average app. Even other old school games that have been re-released on iOS. And it runs well, and of course, the way they got around the slowdown is simply by speeding the frames up.
I remember you saying this, yeah.
It works well because you don't have a slowdown, but at the same time, they didn't actually fix the problem. They just tried to obscure it a little bit. It's just that the touch controls, and you would think for a game that was originally on PS1, you didn't have an analog stick control, it was all directional pad, that it would work better. And in theory, it does. It's clunky, and some of the very useful functionality of the game, like being able to look at movement tiles before you move or before you go toward an enemy, is ridiculously difficult to pull off, to the point where it was a frustrating experience trying to get through battles. And I was just kind of like, I would rather have the slowdown, actually, than have to, deal with this interface.
I could see that with the movement, because you kind of just instinctually think that, oh, it's grid-based, I click on a square, it goes there. But even on the PSP, like rotating and whatnot with the different elevations, sometimes I was clueless of where my person was actually trying to go or where everybody else was. Yeah. So I could see that being an absolute nightmare with a touch device.
Especially with tiles that are on different heights. If the camera is obscuring one of them and you're trying to go one place, but sometimes it gets stuck on the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If as long as we're still talking negative, I really wish you could run away from random battles in this game, because they make traveling such a pain. Like, I just want to get to the place and buy some new equipment because this one guy smashed all my armor and I need to buy more.
So, funny story about random battles. I did so many random battles. I think at some point they make it so it's harder for you to get in random battles. Because if you just go back and forth between squares multiple times, or circles, I guess, technically. And then, normally, I'm traveling, it's like, I moved right away, random battle. And I'd sit there sometimes going back, 40 times back and forth, just praying to be able to do a random battle.
For me, it always seemed to happen when I didn't want it to. I'm one tile away from the story boss, gotta...
See, and that shows that I was grinding, because I was like, I always wanted a random battle. Because I get a lot more experience from that.
And in addition, and even failing that, I really wish there was a fast forward option for enemy turns.
For the battle?
for the battle. And I know
Absolutely.
I think you can mess with some of the settings and stuff, but I don't know. Like I need a fast forward button.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Because one random encounter that can take 5-10 minutes.
Random encounter.
One random encounter that can take 2 hours.
Yeah. So, on that note, I feel like we're kind of winding down. Why don't we all go through and kind of give our final thoughts on the game as a whole? Marcos, you've been super quiet, so.
My final say on that?
Yeah, just the game.
Again, one of my favorite games. I just really like it. I can play it mindlessly, not even think about it. And again, I think I said that I wouldn't even rate it like at my top 10 games. It's just a game that I enjoy playing. But if you were to ask me if it was my top 10, top 5, no, nowhere on there. But I just it is ironic that I can do this. Like some shows I can watch without even watch like over and over again. And you asked me what was on it. I don't know what you're talking about. But for this one, I just really like the characters. And I really wish they could have added a little bit more to the characters. But I'm okay with the game overall. And again, I played the PlayStation version, so I'm missing out on a little bit more story content that everyone else has had the pleasure of having. But that's okay though. I'm happy with the game the way it worked out.
Awesome. And the Peter wrap-up minute?
Is good game. I'm really glad I finally got around to playing it. And I think it has issues that I think are indicative of its age. But overall, the story of Final Fantasy Tactics is really what sells it to me. It's just it's a fascinating setting, really in-depth characters, surprisingly mature subject matter, especially for Final Fantasy. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Still wish I could run away from some fights.
What about you, Caitlin?
I mean, Tactics is one of my favorite Final Fantasies. Probably my favorite Final Fantasy after 12, is of course 12. And I mean, it's hard to. I agree with pretty much what everyone else has said. I love the deep political story, even after we get a little supernatural. I love the characters. It's just, let's see. I played this after 7, so coming off of 7, to have this world that felt strangely more down to earth, despite some of the crazy stuff that happens, than a world like 7, where it's all live stream and alien life forms and clones and stuff. I don't know. It was an amazing experience the first time I actually got through it all, and I wish that they would make more that it wasn't Tactics Advance. I wish we could have sequels to this Tactics, or not. It doesn't have to be necessarily story sequels, just more games in that sort of vein. Which is probably why I like 12 so much, because 12 had a similar political, more serious story. And when I get around to playing Tactics Ogre, which is on my list as soon as I finish P3P, I'm sure I'm going to really enjoy the story in that game as well.
I'm debating having Tactics Ogre be my next playthrough, because I'm kind of on a strategy RPG kick right now.
See, that was actually on our list of possibles for the month of September.
Ooh.
I was kind of trying to hold off on it because we had just played this. But now it sounds like you guys are trying to convince me otherwise.
I mean, there are other games on that list that would tie in. Wink, wink. But
yeah.
So I think that's a vote for Vagrant Story.
Wow. Spoilers. Wow.
Actually, I didn't vote for that just to be contrarian. But
oh, you're a jerk.
It was already winning.
Now it's losing.
Is it?
Way to go.
Oh, what's winning?
It was tied the last time I looked.
Yeah. Well,
I voted.
time has passed.
I voted like few hours ago, so
Now it's tied for second. We'll just say that. We'll ignore the other games so that people can still be surprised. So my final thoughts actually echo Caitlin's greatly. I absolutely this was one of my top 10 games going into this. It still is afterwards. I know I kind of softened on it during the second episode, but I'm fully back to loving this game. I still think it's the second best Final Fantasy, and I agree with Caitlin. And 12 is the best.
Yay! Maybe I don't have to smite you after the podcast.
So yeah, I have to throw that in occasionally so that you kind of like me. But yeah, it kind of tying everybody's thoughts together. I mean, the story is wonderful. The gameplay is great. I love the job system. I think it's super interesting and very fulfilling. If you want, you can have any experience. I mean, you can base it off of jobs, you can base it off of levels, you can base it off of doing craziness with getting secret skills and whatnot. There's so much depth there. There's so much freedom to do whatever you want. But still, at its core, there's a wonderful story. And for me, that makes it so it's, in a lot of ways, it's a masterpiece and it's a perfect experience.
Well, speaking of stories,
Oh my god.
Stories that make
since you gave me that perfect
the
segue,
last.
Wow, Peter's just gonna steal it. Peter's still on his wrap up. So go ahead, Caitlin, keep going.
well, do we want to, I guess, introduce? I think we already mentioned what our game for next month was going to be, but so we should lead into it a little bit.
Yeah. So as we already talked about, the game for next month is Last Story. I am going to be the only one that's going to be on that, so I won't give any final thoughts or intro thoughts or any thoughts because I don't have any because I've never played it. But I'd love to hear the three of you guys' opinions.
I have also never played it. Never got around to it. I wasn't as interested in it. Last Story was one of 3 games that Operation Rainfall was really vocal about getting over here, along with Xenoblade and was it Pandora's Tower?
Yeah.
Pandora's Tower.
And I was semi-interested in it because of the art style and the way the world kind of looked, but I never got to the point where I was like, oh, I need to pick this up. And then I feel kind of bad because I know we should support these lesser known, interesting RPGs that not everyone necessarily, it's not the next Final Fantasy or the next Star Ocean or the next Elder Scrolls game. So, but at some point, I do mean to play it. Probably not along with Retro, because that would mean hunting down a copy.
It's like
But-
$20 on Amazon.
Yeah, Xseed has kept it in stock, so it is relatively easy to find.
Well, I guess I don't have an excuse then.
No
so-
pressure though.
No pressure, yeah. But I am looking forward to hearing thoughts of the crew. Not this crew, but a different crew. Well, Josh and a different crew.
You can just say that you want to hear what
It's-
everybody else's opinion but mine is.
It's like weird, like talking about the retro encounter crew because it changes from every game. Like it's not always the same people. So, but no, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about it, and possibly making me have to go out and buy the game.
I'm looking forward to hearing it too. I really wanted to talk about the game. I'm kind of bowing out of the podcast for that one. But Last Story was, for me, that was the Operation Rainfall game I really wanted to play. Because it's by Hironobu Sakaguchi, creator of Final Fantasy, music by Nobuo Uematsu. I hadn't been able to play any of the other Mistwalker games because I never owned the 360, so Last Story was kind of like on my, it was just really on my radar. I was really excited. I think the game has kind of a bad rep nowadays. Or and I think the reason why is that because of that pedigree behind it, it may not have been what everyone expected. I still think it's a really good and unique game in its own right that does a lot of things really well. Particularly, again, I mean, this is another game I think where the story, in particular, shines.
So, kind of on that pedigree, I was very excited for all three games, just if nothing else because of the story behind Operation Rainfall. It was so interesting. And originally, the last story was the game that I wanted to play the most, but then I got caught up in Xenoblade Chronicles selling out and then being outrageously expensive at GameStop. So I had to have it, so I tracked it down. And then GameStop being weird, they gave me Pandora's Tower free at the time. So I was like, oh, I gotta complete my kind of like group of this, and I never did because I really, really hate Lost Odyssey, like with every ounce of my being.
Really?
Yeah, I really, really hate that game. And so it's one of those things. I actually enjoyed Blue Dragon, but I hate Lost Odyssey. So I was like, you know what? Lost Odyssey was so terrible. This probably isn't that good of a game. And even with everything, all the good things I heard, I just kind of assumed that it wasn't going to be worth my time. And so it was one of those, I just overlooked it. So I'm really, really excited to kind of change that opinion I have about it.
I've heard nothing but praise for Lost Odyssey, so I'm gonna need to hear this.
Hear why I hate Lost Odyssey?
Yeah, I'm curious now. Doesn't have to be, but doesn't have to be now.
I can if you want. I think it's extremely boring. I think none of the characters are worthwhile. I really dislike games that enemies level up with you. And they said that it was so that it'd be more strategic. I think it was just hard to be hard, and it wasn't worthwhile. And I didn't feel like there was ever any payoff. All of the story scenes in between with like the books that you were reading, it was interesting that they put some kind of story into that. I think it could have been done in a much better way. And I think it was kind of a cheap way to tell a story. There's just really, at the end of the day, there wasn't anything that I found redeeming the game at all. I know that sounds super, super harsh, but there was nothing in that game that spoke to me.
I mean, last week you were saying Xenoblade was like the worst game you ever played, so I just gotta double check these things.
No, for the record, I do enjoy Xenoblade. It was one of those, it just came at a bad time. Xenoblade got so hyped up because I ended up spending, I think I bought it for like $100 or something. It's something outrageous, because screw you, stop.
That's a valid statement.
I don't think that's going to be I feel like that would be a very popular statement. But then it just kind of came at, I was doing some other stuff and I was busy with my own life. And so I played a little bit of it. I liked what I did of it, but I never went back to it. I just more had to give Caitlin a hard time.
See, now I have to smite you again.
But Lost Odyssey really is an abomination.
Harsh words.
I just love that word.
We're not holding anything back on this podcast.
Yeah, I never hold anything back.
I lucked out. I pre-ordered my copy of Xenoblade, even though I didn't have a system to play it on yet.
So I sat and looked. I had all three of them queued up in my wish list and in my cart for Amazon, and I watched all of them. And I was waiting for the prices to drop, and then I went on one day, and I was like, oh, well, the price tripled. That backfired.
Oops.
Yeah. So drop the ball on that one.
The only one I had to hunt down was Pandora's Tower, and that's the only one of them for the three I haven't played yet.
They gave it to me for free. Yeah, so
I heard that one was alright.
I'm intrigued by that. I didn't play that. I played Xenoblade enough to be like, yeah, this was fine. And if this was the best one out of the three, I don't really need to play the other three. Or the other two, I guess. Sorry, Galen. But, Marcos, what do you think of the last story?
Oh, I mean, I'm actually going to be on that episode, so should
Wait,
I just what? I'm actually going to be on that episode.
When did that happen?
I mean, I've been attached to that card for a while now.
You have. You're a little... Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah, all right.
I don't want to hear what you have to think.
I don't want to say anything.
Your opinion doesn't matter on this podcast.
I don't care.
So, okay, well, I misspoke earlier. I guess Marcos will be on that with me. So that's very exciting.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Should I just save everything for then?
You can at least say that you like the game.
I've played, beaten the game, and it's one of my favorite games ever.
So good. That's that.
That's it.
I'm really excited. I've never heard any bad things about it, so I think overall it'll be. I think if not, they're always fun playthroughs, and I'm super excited because I've only heard good things about the game.
Excellent.
But so that will do it. Unless anybody has any final thoughts they want to get out before I do the whole rigmarole to end it.
I think I'm good.
Yep, go for it.
All right. So as always, you can join in the discussion on the boards. We love to hear your thoughts. We love to hear what you thought of the recordings, anything you'd like to change, any games. We do have a full list of games that you guys mentioned that you'd like, and so we're fully ready to integrate those in, and kind of hinted at it, but in September that will be one of the games that you guys mentioned, and Tactics actually was a game that you guys had wanted, so please get involved. Like I said, comment on the boards. You can send an email to retro@rpgfan.com. Please go on iTunes or wherever you guys are listening this to. If you can, add reviews. We finally got our first review on iTunes. It was a 5-star, so thank you, JC. Or, wow, I can't read. GC47. We really appreciate the kind words. But yeah, so we thank you for coming on another trip with us. We made it to the 10th episode, which is super, super exciting for Retro Encounter. It's gone by quick already. It's been a hell of a ride, and we're excited for more. So please join us in August for when we play through the last story.